Welcome to episode 718 of Salsido Paranormal. And tonight, Jen, the Arcane Observer, and I are continuing our discussion of caves and the paranormal. And it's been great so far. It's been a 3-part series so far. This will be part 4. And then we'll probably leave it there and go on to some other topic next time. But I'm sure we could talk about this a lot more if we really wanted to. But eventually, I'm sure we'd start repeating ourselves, so it's probably good to move on. But again, Jen, welcome onto the show. Thank you for being here.
Yep, it's good to be here. Thank you, James.
Yeah, so I have an article I found on, really it covers the whole Dulce base, sort of that whole storyline, but it does cover Phil Schneider as well, who seems to be sort of, I don't know if he's the center of everything there, but he's definitely, I think, the most well-known associated with it. As far as I've seen, anyway, I could be wrong. But so apparently, and I'm sort of paraphrasing the article here, Phil Schneider, yeah, so it does say he brought the claims of other people out into the public more with his public speeches that he did, where he shared accounts of the alleged base. He claimed to be a former government employee and explosives expert. He said that he was involved in the construction of that base, Dulce base. So he gave a presentation in 1995 about everything that happened there. I haven't done it yet, but I will look up and find a video of that and share that in the episode description. I do not have the technical capabilities to find it and play the audio for you all now. Otherwise, I would possibly, but it'll be in the episode description. But I'm sure a lot of us that sort of are into these topics have heard part or all of it before. But so he said that during the project's initial stages, the military encountered alien entities beneath the ground. And so he says that and apparently there's even over the years there's a whole conference that has developed around all this. It's at least as of when this article came out, they say there was a Dulce base UFO conference. And of course, they say that people at the conference have disagreed whether or not the base was built deliberately as a research facility or after a nuclear detonation beneath the ground in the New Mexico desert in 1967. When, again, going back to the last episode that you mentioned, Jen, the U.S. government, that they would do these kind of things, was merely attempting to do tests, and apparently they were using explosions to try to stimulate subterranean gas reservoirs, and that's when they encountered the aliens. So just the act of getting something that is used for energy from the ground, I could see that also having effects on other beings that maybe are there and affected by whatever people are doing down there. So let me see here, just to wrap this up real quick. Snyder says that said that he saw the beings below, and he had again, there was a firefight between the terrified soldiers and frightened alien life forms, and to the point where he was injured, having lost fingers, which he does in the video. You can see he is missing fingers. Now, of course, I could hear a skeptic going, if he's sort of into working with explosives, and there could have been an accident somewhere, but I'm not sure anything has ever been proven to confirm that either, so it's really hard to know. But so yeah, the legend goes that the U.S. government encountered various kinds of alien alien entities and trying to arrange a deal for peace that, of course, eventually fell through. So that's and of course the article mentions that even though Schneider claimed that roughly 60 people were killed in the firefight, there's no clear evidence of that actually being the case. But of course, that's the difficult part with all these kinds of accounts of these top secret encounters, is that there would not be any kind of evidence easily available to confirm these things, because it would be hidden if it was there at all. I would imagine. So I don't know what you're. Happy to hear your thoughts on that, Jen.
Yeah, I think it would be suppressed. Any information about that would be suppressed, especially since it would have to do with the surface world existing as it does. The way that humanity has made it clear to themselves that we are, we have the keys to the kingdom, so to speak. We understand this world and we're trying to grasp it 100%, that we have a knowing of it. But if we got that information from some species that existed before ourselves inhabited this, or before the memory was retained, if we got that information from something else, much more ancient than ourselves, perhaps it could be ancestors or it could be something else. So it holds the key to understanding kind of the existence of humanity as it stands. If the planet or the plane that we are existing on, if it was up an entirely different chemistry of every balance of air and everything else about it, all the species that are existing on the surface today, if we were to consider that there's a possibility that there were an entire different realm of species that at some point in time, that we are descended from, or that all species are descended from, or are still a part of, that still are existing either in a different form or in their own original form beneath the surface of, like when you think about archaeological digs and how the deeper you go, the older everything is. And if you were to go down to, say, miles and miles deep into the Earth's crust, and to think that there is nothing there, but there are so many stories that say that there is something there. Why are they there? It would make you think that either it was natural to them or they were trying to control the environment. It's a perfect place to control the environment that you live in. If you were to go into a contained environment underneath the surface. And so if there is some type of species from a much earlier age of the Earth, and that they had to recess into this, down into the crust of the Earth, or they came from it to begin with. I mean, it's almost like ants, or like something like that. The way that they go. In fact, there are stories of ant people and things like that in North American cultures and the cultures that they do talk about that. There was some point in time, and that's not just here, that is everywhere. If you go to the Celtic cultures of Europe, or if you go into, anywhere in the world, they talk about this sort of subterranean race. People might think about it as being like the hidden people or something of that kind, but the nature of those entities is unclear. It's described on like the idea of like the fae folk, but people tend to think of it as being that they are in some type of invisible realm or another dimension, but no one has really stopped to think that maybe they're actually real, and perhaps they are under feet in the underworld as they are described to be located. And we just thought that was just so, I think that people it's hard for us in our it's hard for us to imagine that it could be possibly real. So it's not always, it's good to be decent and be skeptical, but that can blind you from the possibilities of what might actually truly exist. So it's worth indulging in the concept, since we may never actually know. So, because there's no way to confirm or deny which way or the other. So, take one way or the other. They're both. It's, I guess, a decent way to think about it. People may think that it's better to be decent and not consider that these species may exist, or that there might be something literally occupying the same space in the underworld. That sounds, crazy, but it could be the case. Actually, it could be possible, and a lot of these stories are kind of inviting us to consider that. I think, like the concept of the Dulce base, that there may be some type of species that has access to technology that is completely foreign to human technology, that it may have been developed, during the Neolithic age or prior to that even. Through all the different, eons of time, that there might be some kind of species down there that is interacting with the surface, sometimes in a good way or a bad way, but it's incredible that we're always hopeful to look out into space. And people are kind of abhorred by the idea of like going into the ocean or going into the subterranean regions of the world, because they are off limits and they are only accessed, you can't just go into the cave systems, and you can't just go to the depths of the ocean. You can't just go to the edges of the world and find out everything you would like to know. It has to come through other sources, and those are rigidly sort of controlled of what we will understand about it, and there's no way to confirm it one way or the other. There's no way to know, and so you have to take the word of authority, like of what they have told us is there. So it's strange to kind of mix the two of what we are told is there, versus there's, I don't know. It's just, it makes sense to me that there could be something, another species or something of the kind existing alongside mankind. I think it's very plausible. But then the nature of what it is, and like I say, like with the mythology and the folklore, it's neither good nor bad. It does definitely impact humankind in some manner. And I wonder how long until there's some type of interaction between the two, that just happens naturally, that must occur. The reason that this species might have left the surface, so to speak, was like due to atmospheric changes. And they just went closer to the core, where it remained or stayed kind of the same. And we've talked about like the fourth state of matter with plasma, and how when it strikes rock, and that geologists, they use the way that they measure that, it's due to lightning strike through plasmic interference. So where lightning strikes, or where there's ground lightning as well, and volcanoes, as you were talking about volcanoes earlier, it kind of freeze time in that, in the memory of the rock itself. And that's how geologists read what the age of that area actually is. And if you were to think about the layers of that, the magnetic field of the Earth, going beneath the surface, and then into these tunnel systems and these cave systems, that some species may occupy it. It's so hard for us, I think, if you look at the bottom of the ocean and the species that occupy that area, on the ocean floor bed in certain regions, they are so strange. These are such alien-looking creatures. And so I think our minds, they bring up these type of almost horrific images, thinking about what might be down there, and it's not far off from what they look like, at least in the ocean. So considering what might be below the surface of the ground, not in the water necessarily, but literally just in the very, imagine no light, but something somehow existing there. And the earth being plentiful for life and conducive to it. And throughout all of the ages of time that we can imagine, forever, basically. But there must be something down there. Or there might be. It's not my role to play a skeptic. I don't do that. I imagine the possibilities and just kind of take it that way, because I don't want to shut off the valve, so to speak, before it's even gotten anywhere by being too skeptical. So I like to consider things.
Yeah, same here. I like to consider everything that's really, I mean, down below us, and then everything that's out there in space too. One of the biggest things, and this is a sort of aside, but the biggest things that always cracks me up is when we hear about scientists or people that say, well, there's no way anyone could get to this planet from another planet out there in space because of this reason or that reason that is scientific. But then I always think, well, that's as far as we know. That's we don't know everything. So, not that I'm saying that everything is that's happening, that is UFOs or any of the things that's anomalous, is automatically from outer space. But I think that it's a possibility, along with that possibility of things being from beneath the ground here too. Just all these different things that we don't know about yet, and it makes me think we may have to do shows on this at some point too. Is the Arctic and Antarctic circles? Made me think of you made me think of those when you were talking about how we have to sort of we're supposed to anyway accept what we are told from officials and scientists who are the only ones that are really supposed to go to those places, and as to what's there and what's not there. And of course, there are things like Google Earth now, and there's a lot of I've heard of different features that have been seen through that appear to be maybe not natural, but then other people say they are. So it's really hard to know how all that works. But yeah, we may have to do shows on that too at some point, because and that's as far away as you can get. I mean, if you think about distance from wherever you're at on the planet, plus going underground in those locations, and then all the water that's around those locations too, that there could be those could be also avenues of travel for, who knows, some kind of other variation of what we have maybe in warmer parts of the world that are used to the cold in those regions too. So
Well,
I don't
yeah,
know.
I've heard that, like, well, if you think about outer space, this concept of out there somewhere, and then the idea of, if we're to take it as it is, the idea of our planet as it's presented to us, about the core of the Earth, and that it's, if you think of a seed, it doesn't start from without and come in. It starts within, and then it goes out. So if you're thinking about the Earth as like a type of seed, and then the outgrowth from it, the core of the Earth would actually hold the secrets more so, and the truth about the mechanism of how it even came to be. So if you were to think about it as more of coming from the inside and going out, even if it was coming from outer space, as we conceive of it, it would start on the inside and come out. So it's almost like as if this is the surface is what springs from, the alien source within, so to speak, the initial seed planted, and whatever species could make it to the surface. There have been stories and mythos about hybrid programs and things like that. that humans may be even a mechanism for things within the Earth to exist on the surface. So that it was a sort of the species that are on the surface are kind of a reflection of what's actually at the core of the Earth. And there are the idea of Agartha, the hollow Earth theory, that at the source and at the core of the Earth, like the seed, basically, it's like what's outer space is coming from within the Earth and then coming out. And if the inner Earth is like if it's true even within science, the way they talk about it, that the core is a sort of liquid iron, a type of, if you think about Saturn and the makeup of Saturn and the way that there's such a fixation of that, and with all of the spheres, really, mankind talk about, if there is some sort of, I would say like a channel, like a portal, if the Earth is a portal in some way, and if it comes from within and then out onto the surface, when we think about going into the Earth, we're thinking we're coming across something ancient, but it's almost like as if, I don't know. It's not necessarily going back in time. It's probably just a constant conduit of coming and going, and that the deeper you go into the Earth, you're coming back to the source. I think that sort of a Promethean concept that you may be surprised what is there and what the origins of things are. And if you look at Jurassic, like even the concepts of like that the atmosphere was so different on the surface of the Earth, many of the previous species have become extinct when they actually came to the surface. And so some of the more ancient species may stay beneath the surface to prevent that from happening, but keep kind of popping out different species onto the surface to see how they do. And given the protected status of the surface of the Earth, that enjoys a sort of a veil around the Earth protecting it from some of the influences from outer space, the way that they interact with that, being openly exposed like that. I don't know, there's just so much to it that's really strange. Anywho, I don't know. There's no telling what's down there, and if the stories are to be believed, not just through talk of Dulce base, but throughout history and the descriptions, which are often horrifying or angelic. There's always different interpretations of it. But it has never ceased to inspire humanity. But they are still just terrified to descend into those depths because maybe it reveals something to us about, I don't know. And the whole idea about gravity and things like that, and the grave. We think of nothing being below the surface, but we put our dead in the ground. And I mean, different cultures do different things with moving on their ancestors. Some people put them up in the sky, and some put them in the ground. That's interesting too. But I think that to think about the below the surface, it's very mysterious. I wouldn't be surprised if there was something to face, at least to. I don't know if we're meant to. I don't know if we're meant to come across it or not. But I think that people, explore when it happens.
Yep, definitely. And we will have to go into other topics, maybe the planet's poles and all those things another time. So thank you for being here with me again, Jen, and I'll talk to you next time.
Thank you, James. Have a good night.
You as well. And thank you all for being here and listening. And I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.